Hello everybody and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today. And today we are going to be talking about the Nelson. Now, this is a ship that I've gotten quite a few questions about. People have asked me whether she's a good ship, how do they get, better results out of the ship, and whether or not she's worth getting. So hopefully by the end of this video, you will get a pretty good feel for what Nelson is and what she can and cannot do. Now, one of the first sort of major misconceptions about the Nelson is the fact that people look at her and they go, okay, so she's vulnerable from the front because she's got a 26mm bow, but she does have a super heel. So, and she's also got all her firepower forward. So people kind of look at that and go, okay, so maybe she can be played, sort of more of a bow-in type style, more of a pushing aggressive type battleship. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. If you try to play the Nelson that way, there's a very high chance you're going to hate the ship. She's not going to perform for you. Her really big, very overmatchable bow leads to a raised citadel as well. So you eat a shot the wrong way from the front, and yeah, you're eating a huge chunk of damage. This, combined with the fact that Nelson also has a raised citadel that sits quite a bit above water, means that if you ever get caught on the side or whatnot, and a shell goes in there, you're eating massive amounts of damage, and that damage doesn't get healed back by that super heal. So you got to find a way to really survive, right? That's the first thing. Second, survive in a way that your HP doesn't diminish immediately, right? This is like slow loss of HP, and then boom, super heal, you bring yourself back. Lose some more HP, and then another super heal, right? That's the way you have to think about with the Nelson. Okay, what other things really stand out for her? Well, there is two things, right? One is the fact that she's a British battleship, which means her HE is very, very good. So that's like sort of the first little hint that, yeah, you can be shooting quite a bit of HP with Nelson, and you'll do just fine. And second, and more importantly, and this is the sort of key to Nelson survival, is that Nelson actually has an upper belt and deck portion that is 32mm, which means that angled correctly, that bounces everything except for Musashi. Which is the only ship that you're going to run into that is going to pose a major threat to you. So what this really tells you about the way Nelson plays is that she doesn't actually go forward at all, because that big, huge nose of hers is just waiting to get overmatched and punched through. What you're supposed to do with Nelson is what you're about to see me do right now. You see, on this flank, I'm actually, at first glance, at a disadvantage. I'm the only battleship here, except for the Alsace, who's sort of coming towards me. And there's a tier 8 battleship of Massachusetts over there, which for a lot of people, when they're playing a tier 7 and they see a tier 8, they go, oh, he's going to overmatch me and it's going to really, really hurt. And you're going to look at me and you're going to say, well, why are you, deciding to fight here? Because I am going to exploit that 32mm upper belt section to bounce the shells from that Massachusetts. And that Massachusetts, as long as I don't give him a full broadside, is going to have a really hard time dealing with me. Remember also the HE? Well, imagine a Massachusetts or any other battleship that can't overmatch that 32mm chunk shooting at you, and they're getting maybe a couple thousand damage because they're hitting you in the superstructure, maybe they touch you in the stern once or whatever. They're getting a bit of damage while you're smacking them with HE shells and setting multiple fires and getting decent actual HE damage. It's not actually a lot of fun. In fact, a sole Nelson played correctly on a flank can actually stall a flank against tier 8s. In fact, unfortunately, and this is one of the sad parts, is that because the replays are broken, I had another replay where I was in one situation where I was a sole Nelson on a flank and I was trying to hold back 2 tier 8s, which seems in most cases to be kind of an, unrealistic thing to do as a tier 7. And yet exploiting that 32mm piece allowed me to do it quite easily. So here's the Massachusetts, and you'll see, no matter what happens, I'm always going to try to keep that sort of 32mm upper section, angled towards that mass. And you'll watch the Massachusetts bounce shells repeatedly. And, comparison, while the Massachusetts is struggling to really do much to me, I'll be able to constantly get a little bit of fire here, a little bit more fire there, and if I catch them with a decent, let's say, salvo, then I can actually do some reasonable damage with HE as well. So the Massachusetts actually does not enjoy fighting a Nelson that's being played correctly. In fact, none of the tier 8s really enjoy playing against a Nelson that's doing this. Let's say you're playing an Amagi or something like that, and you're trying to push into a Nelson that's being played this kind of way. Super frustrating, right? Because that 32mm chunk, by the way, is actually quite big, especially when you're angled this way to the rear. The stern vulnerability is actually relatively small, so you can really frustrate tier 8 and higher battleships as a Nelson by doing this. And it is the key, and this is really the key to Nelson's play. She's not an offensive type battleship, which is, charging forward and trying to push into stuff. She, in fact, is more of a defensive type battleship. Yes, I know other battleships can do it too, but tier 7s generally will struggle to do this type of strategy against, higher tier battleships, typically because of the vulnerabilities to getting overmatched. But Nelson does it exceptionally well, right? And then plus, remember, the damage you take, it's not really a huge deal. As long as it's penetration damage or if it's just fire damage or whatnot, it's not really a big problem. Why? Because you got that super heal that can bring you back 28,500 per one single heal. Remember, that's basically half your ship. So Nelson, if you exploit these characteristics, wow, she can really do work. So you can see this Massachusetts is going to keep targeting me. Even though there's threat coming from the turrets on the side and whatnot, you can see the Massachusetts continues to target me. Because the Massachusetts, I think, just can't accept the fact that this is what's going to actually happen. Most of the shells that are fired towards me is going to have this situation happen. Bounce, or, well, some misses, but it's going to bounce. And so, really, when you're playing Nelson, this is the thing. Every single time you're positioning your ship, you have to think about it. You can't just say, oh, crap, I got caught out. I'm now going to just sit bow in or, try to make a last-second turnout, because you get caught badly in that kind of situation and oof, things are not going to go well for you. Okay, again, see, still angled. Doink, you hear that sound? Doink, there's the bounce, right? Key aspect of playing a Nelson, right? If you get caught broadside, however, where you're citadel with that raised citadel, oof, and you get clapped, it will hurt. Okay, so that's the first thing. The other advantage, of course, with Nelson is the fact that she herself has 406mm guns at tier 7. This gives her overmatch capabilities against some of the cruisers you're going to run into. It also is going to provide you with overmatch capability against other tier 7 battleships. So you have the ability to defend yourself relatively well using your 32mm plating. If you run into higher tier stuff, you've got the capability to HE them, which is fantastic, right? And you can get good damage that way. But if you run into the same tier below, you can actually go over to your AP and you can bully them to a pretty good extent. So Nelson, if played correctly, can be one fantastic battleship. Now, at this point in time, if you actually look at the battle, you actually think this battle is going very much in our favor, right? Like, we're up on ships, we're up on points, we've got the center cap, and, their enemy team is going to be pushing in here, but we've got a bunch of ships here in the back here that, as soon as we deal with this Edinburgh, we're going to be able to turn back and deal with whatever's pushing in. Actually turns out to be a lot closer of a battle. And part of it, I think, is also contributing, the Cyclone, I think, contributes to that, because, yeah, it really... Cyclones have a tendency of sometimes swing battles in all the wrong ways. Okay, so Edinburgh is dead. That's good. We are now going to be pushing into whatever's coming towards us. So one of the things as the Cyclone ticks down is you have to be really, really careful. See that Alsace that's coming towards me? So I got to keep an eye on that Alsace, right? Because I want to get into a situation with the Alsace where when the Alsace is able to shoot at me, I'm at least somewhat angled, okay? Because if I'm caught full broadside while the Alsace has a salvo ready, there's a pretty decent chance that he's going to be able to hit me really, really, really hard. Now, of course, what I want to do again is the exact same thing. I want to have my HE, right? I want to get my ship sort of turned around, and I want to be able to essentially keep kiting away. And remember, kiting away doesn't always mean you're moving at full speed. It's just sort of turned out with that, upper belt and main belt armor angled in that kind of manner. In a way where the Alsace can't hurt me. And as long as the Alsace can't hurt me right away, he's got to try to close the range or reposition, and all the while he's doing that, I'm going to be pummeling him with HE. So we'll see what happens. Of course, the Cyclone isn't very good, so I do have to close the range a little bit, and I really have to sort of execute a bit of a last second here turn because of the Cyclone, right? I really have to turn around while the Alsace has no vision of me, and then hopefully be in a relatively angled state by the time I'm actually spotted. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously I have a mines with me too, so I think this mines is going to push in quite aggressively. German cruisers in Cyclones can actually be quite good, played correctly, executing the rush at the right time. I mean, you're able to get torpedoes onto target. It's a really, really strong characteristic of, let's say, the German cruisers. They're very good in these type of scenarios. So I'm trying to back up this mines, but at the same time not exposing myself so I'm in trouble. Sort of the key thing that I have to pay attention to is, okay, A, when the mines begins to engage the Alsace, does the Alsace end up firing the main battery guns? If so, that gives me time to turn my ship around so that I can enter that kite position and be able to support the mines in the event the Alsace decides to keep pushing this way. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so there's the Alsace salvo. You can see it right there. Bang, the salvo came in. Okay, so the mines took a main battery salvo. That means I have the reload time of the Alsace to get myself into a good position. Probably should have had AP loaded here, honestly. This was a bit of a miscalculation. Initially, I was thinking, well, if I'm entering kiting away and the Alsace is going to keep pushing me, I better have HE loaded. Still, I'm going to get a decent amount of damage with the HE, just under 10k, but I think with AP I could have hit him a bit harder there. But you'll see me immediately turn into this sort of kite away type position. So in the event that the Alsace dodges this torpedo salvo, and then instead of turning away, decides to turn back in after, killing this mines, then I'm going to be able to fight this Alsace in the sort of retreating type fashion. Okay, Alsace actually decided to continue that turn out, so that means that the Alsace has now removed himself from the battle for the next little while. If you pay attention, we're actually down quite a bit of ships. This mines is going to go down, and then it's basically going to be 4 ships against the enemy team, which has 5. And they've got some pretty hefty ships still, notably the Alsace. They still have an Alaska, so there's still some danger here. Now, I know it's going to take this Alsace some time to get themselves turned around. So, while the Alsace is doing that and outside of spotting range because of the cyclone, oop, there goes out Benson, I'm going to turn back in. I've got my AP loaded now because I know that all the other remaining ships, the York, the Alaska, the KG-5, I have overmatch on them, so I can actually utilize my guns, especially at closer distances, to do some pretty solid damage. Alsace, like I said, he's just turned himself out. It's going to take him a while to get back into the fight. And I need to use this time, because if that Alsace turns back around and is able to re-engage, we're going to get in trouble. So during this little lull in the action with the Alsace, I'm going to quickly go and engage these other ships and hopefully take them out of the fight. KG-5 appears first, broadside, and remember, Nelson does have AP, and this is another one of those things that you got to learn as a Nelson player. When do you use your armor piercing? Because there are opportunities to use it, but if you don't use it, you're going to be giving away great opportunities to hurt people. So first of all, take down that Nelson. And then I have a choice. There's an Alaska and there's a York. Now, I'm a little bit worried about the York, honestly, because if the Alaska pushes in, the York goes aggro. The York does have torpedoes, and with its turtleback armor at closer distances, the York can push quite aggressively. York is also, at the moment, relatively healthy, so let me salvo that York first. Don't really get the world's best salvo. That should have been closer to a delete if the dispersion was a little bit, tiny bit more cooperative. But 11,000 is quite a heavy amount of damage for York, who can heal. Now it's the Alaska's turn. Alaska's at 24,000, 25,000. I mean, actually, their Alsace actually did get taken down by the other mines, which was actually good. That mines' play definitely gave us the ability to possibly win this game here. Okay, so now the Alaska is trying to push in aggressively here. He screwed up a little bit, fired an HE salvo. I think that's what he had loaded for the other Alsace, but, instead of... Yeah, if he had AP, he might have been able to hurt me a little bit more. But there we go. Able to overmatch him. No problem. Alaska down. Okay, I know where the Udaloy is. It's over at A right now, taking the A cap. So the Udaloy is kind of out of the fight, not having to worry about torpedoes from that destroyer, which is a good thing. And the York is either behind the island or coming out of the island. So, yeah, there he is. Yeah, not really sure what this York is planning, to be honest. Yeah, the better play might have been to try to YOLO push, like actually just bow and YOLO push, but again, that should have happened earlier, like a lot earlier. Instead, he sat broadside earlier, and that didn't do him any favors. Okay, so I'm actually going to have to speed this up because not a lot actually happens, right? And we actually almost throw this game, and it wasn't really my fault. Because after we kill the York, I'm like, okay, Udaloy's at A, I want the Alsace to go to C, and the Alsace was originally heading in that direction. So I'm like, okay, it makes perfect sense. Send the Alsace over there. We get B cap, C cap, Udaloy alone from A cap. The only way he's going to be able to come back here is going to go to B cap maybe. Should have enough time and points to, deal with that. And, I'm still relatively healthy. Shouldn't be a problem. So I actually tell the Alsace, go to C. And he says Wilco, which is good. But I actually think he actually misread the caps, or he misthought about the caps, because you actually watch the Alsace, he's going to end up heading towards A cap, and it's only like a little bit later where I'm like, wait, why is he still heading this direction that I tell him to go to C, and he does, and we still end up winning the game. Anyways, I'm going to reiterate the key lessons of the Nelson and how to play her well. Okay, so lesson number 1, don't fight bow in with the Nelson, okay? Because you're going to get overmatched to death, and it's not going to be fun. So don't do that. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two, okay? Always make sure that when you're fighting with a Nelson, that you've got your ship properly positioned but turned away, okay? So that you're utilizing that very good upper belt to bounce enemy shells, okay? Oh, and the main arm belt as well. But you make sure you're angled outwards. You don't have to be sailing away, okay? When you're turning out into a kite position, you're not sailing away. You can stop and hold a position. If you need to accelerate a little bit, the only reason you're really doing that is to either make sure that you don't get caught by torpedoes, and you're also making sure that you're not in a situation where the enemy's able to close their distance on you too aggressively, and then you've got no way to run away. Nelson's not a fast battleship at all, so you do need to make sure that you can control that engagement distance. All right, as long as you sort of keep the enemy outside 10 kilometers, outside of their secondary range, you should be quite a happy camper. Just keep kind of going away a little bit, sling some HE, go away, keep slinging some HE if it's BBs that are pushing you. Okay, don't eat citadels. So that means don't go full broadside and eat a full citadel, because if you eat citadels, your heal can't bring you back from that. Don't eat citadels. Penetration damage, HE damage, fire damage, no problem. You got that beautiful heal, it'll bring you back, but don't eat citadels. Okay. Other than that, Nelson's a relatively straightforward ship. Use your HE when stuff you can't overmatch and is bowing and pushing you. Use your AP when there are ships that you can overmatch and you can hurt. Make sure to use that AP when you have the opportunity to. Okay. And hopefully this will bring you much success when you play the Nelson. She's a relatively straightforward ship, not super complex. And for me, as a tier 7 in a battle with a bunch of tier 8s and 9s, this wasn't a bad battle at all. 109,000 damage, solid credit earning, good amounts of fires, even got Citadel, sunk a few ships. I think my base experience was quite good as well. Yeah, second on the team at 1735. So that's, pretty solid as well. Out of all the other tier 7s on my team, I'm way up there, right? If you take a look at the damage, you can see how badly I hurt that Massachusetts, 37,900. I hurt that Siegfried as well for 26k. And their credit earnings 601,000. So overall, solid ship. Learn her characteristics, play her to her strengths, and Nelson will reward you. Anyways, folks, I hope you have yourselves a very good day. Take care, and I'll talk to all of you again next time.